guys, welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It's 9 o'clock, which means it's time for a Talk Magic. And I honestly have never been more excited than I am right now with the person I'm interviewing. He is a legend, and I do not use that term lightly. This is somebody who is genuinely, certifiably a legend in the Magic community. He's been there, done that, bought the T-shirt. I don't know if there's anything else for him to do. He's just done so much, and I'm so excited about having him on the channel. I am, of course, talking about the one and only Andy Nyman. How are you doing, Andy? You okay?
I'm very well. It's very lovely to hear that. I suffer from dreadful imposter syndrome, so I always find that very strange, but it's wonderful. Thank you so much for saying that. Very nice.
It's so true. You know, this is probably about the 150th interview I've done, and it's the first one where I'm actually sitting here slightly starstruck. So I'm going to try my best to get through this, and we'll see how it works together. But
all right, lovely.
You have done so much both in and outside of Magic. You know, obviously, it's not just Magic; it's acting and consulting and so many different things that we can touch on. Yeah. And at the end of the interview, I really want to talk about the London Magic Convention as well, because obviously I went on record as saying that the convention last year that you and Preston put together, it was my favorite one-day convention that I've ever been to. And I know even bigger plans for year two. So I want to find out.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. Yeah.
Awesome. But for anybody who's maybe only been into Magic for 0.3 seconds and hasn't heard of you, I can't imagine there's anyone out there that hasn't, but let's just assume we're going to start at the very beginning and very quickly. I mean, I'd like to talk about your origin story and how you got into Magic. It feels that ever since I've been in Magic, you've been this huge name that everyone has talked about and revered. But there must have been a starting point, right? There must have been a point where, you know, little Andy got into Magic or something. How did that happen?
Well, when I was a kid, I mean, it's a similar story to a lot of people, I think. I was self-conscious about being squat and self-conscious about my little hands. So I always used to love, even when I was a kid, mime and the idea of doing silly little tricks and things, but I was never very good at it. And I did have a few magic tricks, but I found the instructions impenetrable. And so I could never really make them work. And my mum bought me a couple of bits from Hamleys if she'd been on a trip to London. I had, and I think when International were at Hamleys. So the Vanishing Coin, you know, where you cover it up and it's under the little glass. People who still don't know that. It's an incredible illusion and very easy to do. So I loved that, but I never really did much of it, although I liked it. And my uncle Harold, my mum's brother, would do a trick whenever we went to his house in Manchester. And it was a very, very simple trick, but he literally did that trick for a decade whenever we went and would never reveal it. And it was the first thing I would be excited about seeing. And he would go, it had to be in their front room. It had to be on this one particular table. You know, he'd say that. And he'd take a deck of cards, give them to you, shuffle them. You wouldn't look at a card, you'd take one out, put it on the table, and he would feel under the table and tell you whether it was black or red, and then tell you what suit it was. And occasionally he'd go one stage further and name the card. Well, I mean, knowing now, of course, how the trick is done, which he actually gave me the deck in the final years of his life, bless him. And I thought it was, knowing now what I know about Magic, the most brilliant sideways use of a marked deck. I thought it was just what an inspired idea that was of his. And the theatre of it, that it had to be at that table, and he had to be sitting on this side, you know, all the paraphernalia around it that just was such a throw off. And I would spend hours looking under that table, trying to feel it myself. I mean, amazing. And that really made an indelible imprint on my mind. And the other thing was two friends of mine who have remained friends my entire life. One was Richard Cadell, who I used to walk to school with. So I was a couple of years older than Richard, and we did school plays together, and we did amateur dramatics at the Little Theatre in Leicester together. And around that time at school, I remember him going off and doing Young Magician of the Year, and I didn't really know much about it. And then he came back having won it, of course. And I just remember thinking, oh my God, that's so cool. I didn't really know much about magic, even that. And there was a magic shop in Leicester I'd gone into and seen him do dizzy dots. And he tried to sell it to me and said, it's very easy. And I just thought, there's no way that's easy. There's no way that's easy, because I mean, to this day, I love paddles. And to this day, I can remember seeing that spot jump from there to there and just thinking, how can that be easy? That is incredible. So there were all these little things. Then the other person, of course, is Jeremy Dyson, who I wrote Ghost Stories with, who is my writing directing partner. And for those who don't know, he was the 4th League of Gentlemen. He's the non-performer. And Jeremy had always done magic. And when we met when we were 15 at Jish Summer Camp, he did Out of This World on me, a version of Out of This World he used to do. I think he'd learnt it from the Peter Eldin Pocketbook of Magic, which is a brilliant book, incidentally. So all these things sort of converged, and I also loved practical jokes, and it's all sort of mushed into the same magic shop, joke shop world. Anyway, it lay dormant for years. I went to drama school, moved to London, and in my final year at drama school, when I was 21, or just as I left, actually, Jeremy Dyson was moving to London. And he said, oh, I want to go to Davenport's. And I was like, oh, please, I'm 21. What do I go in a magic shop for? I'm a grown up. I haven't done it for years, mate. He's like, oh, go on. I was like, fine. You know, literally walked in, and it was like came flooding back times 1,000. Just the addiction of it, that going into a magic shop as an adult. And I bought a couple of things, and it just got its hooks into me. So this was as I left drama school, and I just started learning and learning and learning. I mean, I look back now, Craig, I've got so many books and things, you know, I tend to sort of buy and get rid of and buy and get rid of, but a lot of the early stuff I got, I've kept. And I marvel at the books I bought, and I would read every trick and learn every trick. And this was in the glory days of the Kaufman books coming out, you know, and I'd make notes. I still look at them now. I've dated when I bought them, and I put excellent trick, not for me. This one's great, you know. I find it really hard to read magic books now. I love them still, but I find it very hard to read them. Anyway, I sort of got obsessed. And after about 2 years of doing it, I was an out-of-work actor, completely broke. I was driving vans and lorries, doing deliveries to make a living, and working in Hamleys, actually, which was wonderful. So I started selling Svengalis for Marvin.
I remember interviewing Marvin Burglass, and him saying that you were probably the best magic demonstrator that he ever had in the entire history of Marvin.
Oh, well, he'll have said Sven's, maybe. I never did. It was only
Svengali, but Max is what he said. Yeah, Svendex.
Yeah. And it was a wonderful time. That was me, Mark Paul, Anthony Owen, a guy called John White, Jeremy Fine. Oh, there'll be other people I've missed out who were there. I think Nick Einhorn did a bit. John Vanderput, maybe. Guy Hollingworth. I mean, honestly, it was like amazing pals that I made, you know. So I started doing that. And that was, I think, where I really learned about misdirection, you know, because you're doing the same thing 10,000 times. If you're grafting and working hard, and you get to sort of understand how people breathe and move and look away and all of that stuff. Anyway, it's hard graft, you know, as is driving vans and lorries, and you're working for 20 quid a day or whatever it was. And so there was a guy I knew who was a party planner, and I just sort of said to him one day, and Soph and I, we were married then. I think we were married. And I said to this guy, do you ever book magicians. So I was broke, and I was spending like $1,000 a year on magic, which, I mean, it's a lot now. It was a lot then, and I could not afford it. I just thought, I've got to try and make this pay a bit. And, you know, I'm terrified to go do a gig, but I will. And he said, oh, yeah, I book magicians. I said, well, do you want me to show? He was like, no, I hate magic. If you say you can go and do a gig, it's fine. I'll book you.
Wow. Okay.
So I got a booking, and it was like, when would this have been? I mean, Soph and I have been together 32 years. So this must be 30 years ago. Wow. And I was earning I'd have been earning 25 quid a day driving vans and lorries or working at Marvin's. And I think this was a 2-hour gig, and it was about 125 quid.
Wow. I bet you thought, wow, this is incredible. Huh?
Well, it is. I mean, I still think that's, I mean, in my head, my default is still 25 quid a day is what you earn for a day's graft. So I still think 125 quid for a day is a shitload of money, to be honest. I really do. And for 2 hours, God almighty. But then it was like 5 days work. So I got a gig and I did it. And I really did not understand how gigs work. I honestly, Craig, I'm not exaggerating. I took every single trick I had ever bought. I thought you could do each trick once. So by the end, I can remember this so clearly. First table got the A-list, cut and restored rope, and this, a good card trick of that. By the 8th, 9th, 10th table, I remember do you remember that Supreme Buddha thing? It was like a sort of magnetic Buddha with a disc, and I'd never really practiced it. You're loading it under a card and moving it and just anything. I'm looking through my little case of bits, things I'd had since I was a kid. It's, you know, tricks in there with like rubber tongues and plate lifters, and I'm not exaggerating. Anyway, but I enjoyed it, and I went away and thought, well, I should do a bit more of that, because that makes sense. So, and again, at that time, there weren't a huge amount of people gigging. I mean, there was the Zaps and the Faye Prestos and the Rich McDougalls. And so there were some great people out there cornering the market, but there was a lot of work out there. And I very quickly started working a lot. I think because I had an actor's sensibility and I didn't feel like a magician in inverted commas, you know, and I found it easy to talk to people, and I would kind of enjoy the gig. But it also meant I could work, you know, if I did 2 gigs a week, the rest of the time was free for auditions or voiceovers or to be with Soph or whatever. And then that just increased as the years went on. And then Mentalism, I'd always sort of loved it. But at that point, it was a sort of dead art, really. I mean, it's inconceivable now, Craig, but it was, you know, you had the giant of David Burglass, but David hadn't been on telly for a few years, but his work, and he doesn't class himself as a mentalist anyway. So other than that, in this country, you know, prior to that was Dunninger, Curran. I mean, it really was not a thing. So there were 3 of us doing it. Graham Jolly, who is still out there doing it, who is incredible. Mark Paul, brilliant, and me. And Mark Paul and I knew each other because Mark Paul was sort of Marvin's right-hand man. So Mark would be booking me in at Hamley's for days' work. And we were great pals and got on brilliantly and would just talk about mentalism a lot. And I realized that for me, one of the things that was enticing about mentalism, it was a more naked form of magic. So much more relied on my acting, which I thought, oh, well, that's interesting. And I also looked at it and thought, there's no one else doing this. So economically, that means if there's no one else doing it, I can charge, instead of £125 for an hour, I can charge £250 for an hour, because they can't go to any. There's only 2 other people. There's Mark Paul and Graham, and we're sort of different markets. So it gave me the power to just say, oh, well, I won't, if you can't afford it, that's fine, you know, shop around, and if you change your mind, come back. And so I started doing mentalism when no one was doing it. And that I realize I'm just talking and talking. Is this all right? I can just
this is amazing.
Okay.
Yeah, this is great.
Okay. So then because I loved, and to this day miss, magic shop catalogues. I mean, my God, the Supreme catalogues, Hank Lee's catalogue, when that catalogue would arrive, oh my days, with that brilliant artwork that I think Max Maven did loads of, you know, brilliant stuff. And I just thought, I want, just once in my life, I would love to be able to walk into a magic shop and see a trick that I'd invented. But I don't know how to invent a trick. I've no idea what to do. And Guy Hollingworth was, and he's one of my great friends and great friends in magic. And of course, it's quite hard when one of your great friends is one of the most brilliant, creative human beings that's ever been in the art, seemingly effortlessly so, you know, with such, we are chalk and cheese. I mean, his grace and effortlessness and charm. And I'm like his sort of homunculus by his side, a little sort of bulldog scurrying along next to his sort of just perfect, you know. Anyway, he brilliantly sort of said, oh, it's nonsense. Of course you can invent a trick. Anybody can. I was like, well, you can't. He was like, of course. What's the effect you want to do? And I said, I don't know, like a book test. What do you love? I said, so it's something with films. I know that. Okay, well, what would it be? It's like, well, I don't know, a book test with they open like a film guide, Halliwell's film guide. You can tell them what film it is. Okay, well, what method could you do? Well, what's the worst method? Well, the worst method is that it's all the same film. Brilliant. You've just invented a trick. It's terrible, but you know, that would work. But it's not very good. So how could you make it better? Well, there could be 4 tricks on each page in a different order and you fish for it. Great. Okay. Well, that's another version. What else could it be? And before you know it, you suddenly realize, I can actually do this. They're all shit ideas, but they're just ideas. And also I'm just ticking things off that aren't working and realize what parameters I want it to be. Well, that process eventually became Killer Elite. Wow. And at the time, I mean, again, it's quite hard to say these things and not sound like a dick, but there really hadn't been anything like that. You know, we're so used now to seeing grandiose movie style trailers for things and, you know, artwork that resembles pop culture and this and that. That was not really a thing in magic. Everything would be in little blister packs or envelopes, clear pack, a bag for 10 quid and typed instructions, and there it is. So Killer Elite really felt like there's a trick that's got Reservoir Dogs, Scarface, Pulp Fiction. I mean, it just felt like that was, and it was very exciting to me because it really felt like me. It reflected things I love and my interests and my sensibility. So, and I made nothing on it, nothing, because I did it all officially. I did it, I mean, I realized for you, that's like, what? But I did it because there was a shop in London called VinMag that was like the movie poster shop and all that. And they were producing those postcards. Okay. And they were producing those postcards officially. So you're paying copyright to Paramount or whoever it was. So those postcards, even when wholesale, I was buying them for, you know, I'd buy 1,000 of them to make up at home the things. I don't think they ever cost me less than 50p each, those postcards. So each set of 5 postcards, you know, was like £2.50 plus the poker chip, plus the printing. So I made tuppence halfpenny on each thing. But and actually, I'll tell you a great story about that. But I was going to say, I didn't care because it just felt like that's me. That's my thing. And it's in magic shops all over the world. Coda to that. I went to see Ricky Jay and his 52 assistants at the Old Vic when it was on. And I was with Chris Power, and Chris knew Ricky. So we all went for a drink afterwards. And Chris said, oh, show Ricky. He'd said to me, bring Killer Elite. So he said, show Ricky Killer Elite. So, okay, well, there are these 4, you know, and I do the trick. It was fine. I can't even remember what he did, but it was fine. And he said afterwards, because of course he also, you know, he had one foot in the film world, of course. And he said in quite a sort of challenging way afterwards, he said, yeah, it's really good. He said, and of course you've paid copyright on those images. He couldn't believe it when I said I had. I said, yeah, I do. I do. I buy them through the official merchant and I pay copyright on every one of those film posters. Oh my God. He was like, well done, shook my hand. He couldn't believe it. So it was worth never making a penny on it for Ricky Jay's handshake.
Wow.
That's awesome. Yeah. Anyway, so that then led to, I was going to LA for meetings and I thought, I want to work at the castle. So I worked at the castle. I auditioned and worked there and it was wonderful, but I thought, I've been terribly paid. Maybe I should go back next year and lecture. I ain't got a lecture. I'd invented Killer Elite and that was it. But anyway, I booked in and I booked a lecture. I just thought, okay, I've got 8 months to come up with a lecture, which I did. I forced myself to go through that sort of Die Hollingworth process of, come on, it just starts with the plot. What's the plot? And then you'll find terrible ways of doing it and they'll get less terrible as you get further down the line, you know. So the first lecture I ever gave was at the castle.
Wow, that's kind of a stressful first lecture.
Oh my God, I was shitting myself. I just leapt in with both feet. I thought, you know, and I was convinced, I knew that the sort of material was solid for sure. But yeah, it was scary. Anyway, so that's off one question. I apologize. That's been 25 minutes of ramble, but
it's amazing to hear that. So I got a couple of questions on that. First question is, everything that you told us on your journey towards going to the Magic Castle at that point, it was all centric on magic. But I mean, obviously you went to drama school. We know you as a very successful actor.
Yeah.
Did you ever find there was a conflict between being a magician, being an actor, or did they kind of complement each other quite well?
I was absolutely, and still am, it's softened a bit now. I was tunnel vision about that. That it was like, in my head, it was just my hobby. Oh, I should also add to all of that, once I was gigging a lot, Soph, my wife, went to work for Twizzle and phoned me up one day and said, can you do a kids party next weekend? We're desperate. I was like, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. No. She was like, please. It really helped me out. And it's like an hour and a half, 2 hours, half an hour's 40 minutes of games, half an hour magic show and balloons. And it's 180 quid or whatever it would have been. And again, I just sort of found myself thinking, who am I to turn down 180 quid? You know, I'm not doing anything that day, you know, and we've got, you know, a mortgage, and I think Macy, our daughter, was born by then. And I thought, I can't say no to that. So I was like, fine, okay. So then bought, you know, Mark Leveridge's brilliant kids party books. Brilliant. Oh my God. You know, also shout out to Mark Leveridge. Actually, I don't think he gets the love he deserves, that man, within the magic community. His art of close-up hopping tables was an absolute Bible for me. His shoelace routine, his sponge ball routine. He's brilliant. He's brilliant. And I think one of the things that means he doesn't really get the love is because his artwork's all sort of clip art and he's never really gone into that big pushing world. His magic is fantastic. And I give massive kudos and gratitude for him, because so much of the material I did was his material from his books. Anyway, my kids' party was probably 70% Mark Leveridge. So I went and did this one party and thought, this is brilliant. Absolutely loved it. So I probably did 500-600 kids' parties as well.
I did not know that. Wow.
Yeah. Mr. Gazumba. Mr. Gazumba.
Wow.
Cowboy Andy, Pirate Andy. I mean, I just changed my hat. I mean, but yeah, I still love it. I do 4 a week. I used to do 4 a weekend. You know, 2 on a Saturday, 2 on a Sunday, maybe a close-up gig. And then the rest of the time was free for auditions. So, but to answer the question Also, I would say to any magicians who are listening to this, do not be snobby about any branch of magic. The lessons I learned doing kids' parties, oh my God, phenomenal. Yeah. Absolutely phenomenal. Again, it's hard graft, but learned so much about an audience, so much about how to control an audience, how to entertain an audience. I loved it. And also, I think it's some of the most profoundly moving, real magic that you can do that you know is going to have a real impact on these little people. It's wonderful. So I was always adamant about, I was an actor first. I still am. It's how I think. I'm an actor by profession. Magic's my hobby. And I would never, ever be swayed from that. I never wanted to be swayed from that. And of course, that all came into play later when they asked me to do the Derren show, and I was like, no, it's fine. So that was really my journey into magic. And I still, God, I love it so much, Craig. I absolutely love it.
That's something that comes across whenever I speak to you, and whenever I see you, you come across as so passionate about what you do, so passionate about magic. And I think it's so great to see. It really is. So what made you then, so you put a lecture together, and you obviously had Killer Elite, but obviously we know from that we've got Dice Man, we've got Get Nyman, we've got a whole bunch of products.
Yeah.
Big Reaction. I mean, a lot of products that came out over a kind of a condensed period of time. And like I said to you off camera, Magician's Graphology is something that I literally perform almost every single gig.
Oh, so very happy.
Where did that desire come from? Was it did you go, hey, I really enjoyed this lecture, I want to do more? Did it come from wanting to share to the community? Or, like you said, you got bills to pay, it's another income stream, revenue stream?
It's never really been about the revenue stream. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm really grateful to it as a revenue stream, but I've never had big hitters. I mean, I've had things that have consistently sold, but the lessons I've learned is certain dealers, you don't really get paid a lot. Certain you will get more through, and it keeps coming. But, there are a couple of them that have been selling stuff for years and years and years and years and years, and you don't see a bean out of it anymore. So they're not, unlike, you've had giant sellers in the past couple of years, cartoon level sellers, which are phenomenal, but I've never made money like that. It's been a consistent stream. So it was never really about that. I realized after the first lecture how much I enjoyed creating. And one thing that the lockdown really brought home to me was that if I'm not creating, be it magic, writing, acting, it's like a death. I've got to do it. I love doing it. And
is that right? Because you had a period of time where we didn't see any new output from you, and then in the last couple of years, obviously, you had the Moment come out from Penguin, and we're seeing a few of the bits and pieces. Did that come from lockdown as a desire to want to start creating again? I don't know, actually. I find it hard to create. I really do not find it easy. I really don't. And that's another thing for people who think, oh, I can't do it. I'm not one of these clever people. I don't find it easy. And I don't think, some people maybe do. I struggle with it a lot. And I'm very inspired by other people's effects, and you'll sort of think, oh, that's brilliant. Some of mine, I think, are completely original as a plot, like maybe Dice Man. I think, oh, that was really an out-the-box one. And then, but, Killer Elite is just hypnotic prediction or whatever it was when I was a kid. And I thought, well, just having a pen and 3 different designs, it's brilliant, but it doesn't mean anything. What's my version of that? And I've got a thing coming out later in the year, which I'm very, very, very excited about, called Skullduggery, which is a version of someone else's thing, which I'm doing with full permission and all of that. And, that's all great. But I'm very excited about that. So I just love the creating of it. And I love sharing it. And I love selling it. And I love the idea. I mean, what an amazing thing for you to say. There's not a day goes by I don't do Magician's Graphology. I mean, that's incredible to hear that you've genuinely, when I'm dead and gone, God forbid, whenever that is, that your legacy lives on.
And please God, my legacy will live on with my acting, which is my primary love and care, but also the impact I've had in magic and in theatre. And so I love the arts, and so I love all of that. But I also slightly fell out of love with magic. I've struggled with it. I've wrestled with it a lot. Because the acting has always been the most important thing to me. So when people occasionally, if someone comes up to me and says, "Oh, I'm a real fan of your work," it used to be, and I say used to, over the past maybe 3 years ago, if someone said, "I'm a really big fan of your work," I would wait to hear what they were a fan of. I go, "Oh, thank you." And if they said, "Yeah, I loved you in Fiddler on the Roof or Unforgotten," or what, oh, it was heaven to hear it. And if they said, "A big fan of your work," yeah, oh my God, I do magic, and I love Derren, and a little bit of me think, "Oh, fucking hell. Well, that's pathetic. It's terrible." I had to really talk, have a big talk with myself about that and work through that and think that's so silly just because it's not my primary thing. The fact you can have an impact in the arts, in people's lives with anything is a wonderful thing, and I really had to recalibrate that and sort of put my ego in check a bit, which is ultimately all it's about. It's sort of silly. So I really, and also Preston becoming so engaged in the magic world has just been magnificent for me. I've absolutely look, I'm proud of both the kids, but the fact he is so involved in magic and so creative and funny and inventive, and that has just been given me a whole lease of fresh life with it. Yeah. I feel a little bit in his wake sometimes, when we go to the circle and stuff, suddenly I feel like Bobby Bernard. I feel like one of the old timers, and he's there with his mate.
He has inherited that passion that you have for magic. Every time I'm around Preston, he's just so excited about everything. It's just so awesome to see.
Well, he's also got a great, as I have, a great love of old stuff, of Supreme, of Ickle Pickle Magic, of interesting props and old school thinking.
Yeah,
because so much of that, there's so much electronic bollocks out there. Yeah, that is just, honestly, cut a hole in the bottom of it and hide it, or get a bit of carbon paper. Seriously, it's such the electronic thing is such don't get me wrong, in a James Bond way, it's the most thrilling, brilliant, exciting, oh my God, magic. But it's a creative, it's suffocating creatively because it just stops you thinking.
Yeah.
It stops you thinking of all the other ways you can do stuff. So anyway, Preston being really engaged for me is wonderful.
That's so good. And I want to talk to you about, because his name's been brought up a couple of times, Derren, because your names have been linked for many, many years, and you've been a big part of his success, a huge part of his success.
Yeah.
How did that all come to be? Because you're an actor, your focus is very much on acting.
Yeah.
That is the main thing. Magic is secondary. You're creating magic, you're lecturing, you're gigging, you're being an actor. But then all of a sudden, everybody in the community is like, okay, well, Andy's kind of the brains behind a lot of the stuff that's going on. How did that all come to be?
So what happened was, when I, as I was saying earlier, got into mentalism, there were very few of us doing it. There was Graham, who back then still does, looks like a bank manager. That's what makes him so hilarious. He looks like a bank manager, and he's got the dirtiest mouth you've ever heard in your life. I mean, it's so brilliant. Mark Paul, and Mark's brilliant, but Mark was also a sort of QVC presenter, which tells you everything you need to know. Handsome, slick salesman. And I had, Killer Elite had just come out. I was sort of scrappier and had an actor's sensibility and a bit of street smarts that was very different from those sensibilities. So I got a phone call out the blue one day. I mean, everybody's, not mine, but everybody's in the magic world dream phone call. This is Andrew O'Connor. I run a production company called Objective. I want to offer you a 1 hour special on Channel 4 doing Mentalism. Literally that phone call.
Wow.
I remember it so clearly. I was standing outside the Wyndham's Theatre. And so I said, oh, that's lovely. I said, oh, how's that happened? And he said, well, we're doing this show and Ali Bongo and Pat Page have both recommended you. I mean, amazing.
Wow.
Wonderful. I think because there weren't that many people doing it as well. But nevertheless, they're very, very special. Anyway, I said to Andrew, look, I'm an actor. That's what I do. All I care about is being happy. So that it won't make me happy doing that. So thank you anyway. And he said, well, will you meet us? Me and Michael Vine, will you meet us for lunch so we can talk to you about it? So I said, yeah, of course. So I went and met them for lunch, showed them a couple of tricks. And they said, look, we really, really, really want you to do this. We think it'll be 5 years on Channel 4. This was 1984. This would have been 1998, 99, something like that. I think it's going to be 5 years. And we think it'll be X amount of money over the 5 years. Well, it was more money than I'd seen or could imagine in my life. Equally, I just thought, so I said to him, look, it won't make me happy. Honest to God, I don't want to be a mentalist or a magician. I'm an actor. That's literally all I care about. I said, but whoever you find, you like my ideas, I'll write ideas for them and work with them and help them perform, find who they are and do that. And that was the best thing I could have done. And then about 6 months later, they came to me and said, we found this bloke, Derren Brown, who's from Bristol. And have you seen him or heard of him? And I'd seen him at Macmillan's that year. It was the first time he'd entered the competition. And it was remarkable. I'd never seen anything like it, and I know a lot about magic. And I sat there and just thought, what the fuck is going on? This is just, this is freaking me out. He's like, hypnotize these people instantly. He's doing magic that I can't. Either these people are stooged. I suspect the experience that an awful lot of people still have. Either these people are stooged, or this is I don't know what this is. They've got to be stooges. Well, of course they weren't. It was just his genius, sideways thinking and brilliant magic. So I'd seen him and said, yeah, he's absolutely amazing. And they said, okay, well, look, I think he's going to be the man. So why don't we want you to write for him with him? And why don't you get together and see if you get on? So it was Macmillan's was coming up sort of 2 weeks after that. So we met up and we fooled each other with stuff. But more importantly, we just had an absolute scream, made each other laugh so, so much. And that is, 24, 23 years ago. So I did all the TV, excuse me, Lottery Prediction was the last TV that I did, because it's just too much, the TV. And I was getting busier and busier and busier, and the time just wasn't working out. But also it's just a non-stop monster TV. It just devours. And then I've co-written and co-directed all but one of the stage shows.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, really proud of them. I'm proud, and Derren's amazing. And that's Andrew O'Connor as well, is the third cog in that machine, and has been more so over the past probably 5-6 years, where we've co-written. Up until that, it was Derren and I wrote them and I directed them. And it just got to the point it was just too much with my other commitments, and Ghost Stories was happening, and I was, away more working, and it just became impractical. So, so Andrew and I, the three of us write them, and then Andrew and I direct them now.
That's amazing. And
yeah,
it just shows that how committed you are to your acting, that you're given an opportunity that pretty much any magician around the world would jump over themselves to have that phone call from Andrew O'Connor. And you have the sensibility to go, this isn't what I want, this isn't what I like, you know, it's not going to make me happy, you know, no, thank you. I mean, that's wow. You know, not many people do that in the situation you're in.
No, and it's interesting, you know, I've always tried to be like that. I think that that's one of the great gifts of magic, and one of the other reasons that, you know, I really had to sort of remind myself to be grateful to magic and not weird about it. It's changed my life, you know, because it's meant when I wasn't acting, I can earn money.
Yeah.
So it gave me real power over my acting career to make choices. Well, that's really rare as an actor, as a freelancer. And to have two streams of income of things that I love is really an incredible blessing, you know. But I would urge people who are watching or listening, you know, not to underestimate prioritizing being happy. It's very, very easy to see that as a sort of an adjunct to your life as opposed to the primary thing. About trying to identify what it is that makes you happy and keeping that as sacred, whether that's family time, whether that's the job you want to do, whether that's, and then trying to find ways to protect that. And again, that was magic for me. But if it wouldn't have been magic, I'd have been driving vans and lorries and, you know, doing other things to protect, to mean that I could keep the acting that is the thing that I love most sacred and only do the things. But it just so happens that magic sort of found me.
And did your experience with Derren open up another string to your bow? Because obviously, from the back of that, you do consult with a lot of people. Like I interviewed Richard from Young and Strange.
Young and Strange.
Yeah, and I asked him the question. I said, "What's the best thing that you ever did in your entire career? You're so successful as an act. What is the best thing you ever did?" And he said, he looked dead into the camera and he said, "The best thing that we ever did is hire Andy Nyman to come in and consult on our show and tell us what we needed to do." He said that changed everything. You know, I mean,
that's lovely. That's such a lovely thing. It's put your question out of my head. I was just thinking how nice that is. What was your question?
You then became a consultant. I suppose the question is twofold.
Oh, I know what you asked. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you enjoy consulting? Is that something?
I don't really consult that much, is the truth. Okay. I really don't. I mean, there have only ever been a handful of people who've asked me to look at their acts, of which Young and Strange was one. You know, there were various TV shows where I'll be asked, can you take a look at everyone's act and give notes? Some people do not want notes. They see it as an attack, and they don't understand what the point of a director is. But the biggest thing it allowed me to do, the Derren thing, was to, and again, it all goes back to the lessons from Guy as well, is that you can create. You have the power to create. We all do. And it's just about, nothing comes out perfect. It's all work, hard work. And if I hadn't have done Derren, I would never have had the confidence to do ghost stories, to write ghost stories. Never. And that ghost stories was a real life changer. For me and Jeremy, you know, we've been writing and directing together now for 12, 13 years. Our first novel comes out in the spring with Hodder. Yeah, we've got a 2-novel deal, and the first novel will come out in the spring. And our next play after that. And, you know, I would never have had the courage or the self-belief to think, it's fine, we'll write a play. What's the worst that happens? It never gets put on. Or actually, even worse than that, it gets put on and it's shit. And it gets terrible reviews and everyone laughs about it. That's the worst it can be. So as long as you know that, I mean, I just used to have to remind me and Jeremy all the time, I'd be like, the worst is we write a bad play. Well, there are plenty of those. It's fine. And the best is it runs for 12 years all over the world, and we write and direct a film of it. And that's what happened. It's still ongoing around the world.
So do you prefer acting or do you prefer scripting and directing? Because a lot of what you're talking about now is writing and directing and making it happen from behind the scenes. But I know you're very passionate about acting and you've acted in so many different things. What do you prefer on that side of?
I love acting most. I love acting most. But yeah, I mean, directing a film. Oh my God. Oh my God. I mean, I think that was the most creatively fulfilling period of my entire career, because we'd written it, I'm playing the lead in it, we're directing it, but you are also making 1,000, and maybe that's an exaggeration. Let's think seriously, 250, 300 creative decisions and compromises every single day that are fired at you, and you're having to decide anything from what shot is the best shot to do with the director of photography, what bit of lighting do you like, this thing hasn't turned up, how are we going to fix that? For tomorrow, we just need to get an answer on this costume. Do you want it that or that? Well, can we see there are, honestly, Craig, it is that every single day, from the moment you're in pre-production to the end of post-production, because it goes right through the edit, the sound mix, the this, the that, right the way through. It's every single day. So it's a culmination of everything, and also in ghost stories, there was loads of magic, like both in the stage show and in the film. All the effects in the film, for the most part, are practical effects. And Jeremy and I, Jeremy's also a magician and loves it. We used to call it Buster Keaton filmmaking, because, the moments in the film that look like incredible CGI aren't. Yeah. It's the threads or a mirror, or it's stuff that could have been done at the dawn of cinema, literally 100 years ago. Same technology, nothing. And that, applying that stuff, your magic brain as well to it. Oh, fucking hell. I mean, it's just so that was sort of everything coming together in the most perfect way. And again, you're making it not knowing if anyone's going to like it.
Yeah.
But you just got to make the thing you love. And all of that roots back to, so I love acting more than anything, but everything else is there's a lot of stuff vying for a very close second place.
I'm with you. And how important, one more question about acting, how important would you think it is for somebody who is a magician, but they're wanting to make it big? It's their goal to be the greatest magician of all time. They want to be the next Derren Brown, the next Dynamo, whatever. How important is it to have an understanding of acting and stagecraft and scripting and that side of things? Because a lot of magicians don't do that at all. They literally just come in and they learn the card tricks and they go out and they figure it out. But would you advocate maybe taking a step back, taking acting lessons, learning about vocal projection? Is that?
Look, I think, firstly, I would encourage people to broaden their horizons artistically as much as they can. That doesn't mean you need to be going to the opera, but I mean, we've all got telly and we've all got 300 channels. I mean, you can watch a really wide diversity of stuff. So open your horizons a bit and start watching things you wouldn't normally watch. Watch films you wouldn't normally like, watch series, just to sort of see if something is out there that is like in the zeitgeist, like Stranger Things, for instance, and it's not your bag. Try it and just see what it is that's exciting about it, and find inspiration in these things. If you can afford to go to the theatre, because I know it's an expense, you can get cheap tickets for loads of stuff. Go to the theatre, start looking at theatre. And again, if you're someone who thinks theatre's bollocks, it's not for me. It's not, that's not true. That's like saying film's not for me, telly's not for me. There's all sorts of spectrums of big, wonderful musicals, broad comedies, tiny local pub plays. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff. But I think you need to try and broaden your horizons a bit and find the things you love. Because the thing I would urge is, wanting to be the next big thing is not really an ambition. I don't know what that is. I mean, I want to be rich and famous. But what goes hand in hand with that actually is, I want the love of everybody, and I want to earn lots of money without having to work for it.
Yeah,
that's what it's sort of. And I think what goes hand in hand with rich and famous is loads of freebies. I want to go first class, not pay for it. I want to stay in the nicest hotels. I want people to kiss my ass in restaurants when I walk. All the sort of images of what it is. It's nonsense. None of it's as good as just being happy with what you've got.
That's so true.
No matter how little you've got, trying to be happy with that. And then the aspiration is to be, it sounds cheesy, but the best version of you. And I don't mean that in a self-help way, but who are you? What are your, that's the work I do with people. If they say, we'd love to do some work on the act, is my starting point is, I'll watch the act, or if they've sent a video, or if I just meet them, I'm like, who are you? You're married, you've got kids, what are you scared of? What do you love? Are you religious? Your parents alive? What's your childhood like? What's your favorite food? What's your least favorite food? Have you been on holiday this year? Do you want to go? Are you rich? Are you poor? Are you struggled? Have you been bankrupt? What did that feel? I mean, a million things just to get to all of those things. And one thing I talk about a lot as well when I'm working with people is, people often think, oh, I've got a boring life, but it's not true. The story of what, how you got up and what you had for breakfast, just detailing that story is interesting.
Yeah.
And there are plots within it. I get up 4 times a night to go for a wee. I'm tired on a morning. My knee hurts, and I get up and I bought a little brilliant little nightlight thing from Amazon. It's a really warm light and it's really sensitive. Go out in the hall, this thing comes on and it's a really cozy light. And suddenly it's a little better than stumbling through the dark and thinking another fucking wee. Well, I don't believe, if I saw someone on stage telling me that, I'm in. I might not want to know how bad his prostate is, but I'm in, because I can sort of relate to it instantly. And there's a humanity to it. Or as there is going, saw my daughter yesterday. She's working with my cousin's daughter, makes my niece. Yes, that's right. Who's a brilliant chef. She was a violinist, gave it up. She's a chef. Brilliant, does private stuff. My daughter's working with her. She brought me a great big thing of granola they'd made yesterday. Had it for breakfast this morning. Yogurt, fresh yogurt, granola, some cherries. And I was pulling the cherries apart. And my fingers were really red from the cherry juice. And we're into a plot. I don't know what the plot is. I don't know what the effect is. But all I'm doing is talking about my breakfast, what I did. And it's interesting. So I don't buy that people have got dull lives. If you can't do, a different version is, I am broke. I see people going to M&S and I just think, fucking hell, I'd love to be able to afford to do that. All I've eaten for breakfast every day for the past 8 months is one Aldi version of Weetabix. I can only afford one thing every day. Do you know what I mean? It's just, it's all about a human experience. And none of that is about, I am pleased to meet you as a magician. I've been fascinated with time and how it affects each and every one of us. I'd like you to take a look at, I don't know who that person, I don't know what that is.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think that it's not about acting per se. It's about trying to be honest about who you are, what your foibles are, not being afraid to be vulnerable, not trying to not be worried about what people think of you. I mean, how strong is that, going out on stage and talking about the things you're scared that people might think of you? What a great way to start an act. I've spent my life worried people think I'm fat. You know, so I refer to myself as stocky, not podgy. But some of you might look at me and think, well, he's podgy. But I hate that.
Yeah.
You can't not listen. You can't not be involved, can you? Yeah. You know, if you're honest. And I think that's the demand. Now, again, I'm not saying every single trick should be like that. Equally, I want to say, take the coin, put it on there, cover it up. It's gone. Fucking hell. Right, watch. It's back. That's also valid. But if you want to be the people that when you see him, you think, oh boy, I can't wait to see Williamson, or, I mean, he's the first great off my head, or the people who you think of as the greats, you sort of are knowing who they are. You're getting an inkling into who that person is and their being.
Wow. That's probably the best advice that I've ever had on this channel ever. That's amazing. That's really great. Because it's a question, I mean, a question that comes up on this channel all the time, over and over again, is people write, hey, how do I find my own performing character? How do I figure out what my character is? And they always cite people like Piff the Magic Dragon and Tom Crosby, and they've figured it out. You know, how do I figure mine out? I'm just me. How do I be somebody else? And you know,
but that's the problem. And part of that is acting. You know, everyone has a different version of what, as actors, everyone has a different version of what they think acting is. And for me, acting is taking whatever the role is and finding where I'm similar, finding the things I can hook into that mean no matter how evil the person is, or how innocuous the person is, or how sad they are, or joy or mad they are, just finding the things I think, oh, I do that, or I can find that I do that. And suddenly you find ways that bring it to you. So the edges become blurred so that people don't think, oh, that's a great performance. I don't want people to think that. I want people to just watch it and believe that that's a human being. Yeah. You know, that's one of the amazing things as well when you get great writing. So the last series of Unforgotten that I was in, you know, that writing is amazing because you're taking these really complex people who have done very bad things, and yet you want to be able to empathize with them, you know, and that's about understanding that you don't, you know, for those people who are asking, you know, Piff's done it, Tom Crosby's done it, how do I do it? They've figured it out. What's my character? Your character's you. That's what my kids' party character was. Just an exaggerated version of me, just slightly grumpy, offhand with kids. And that's what my cabaret act was, a slightly tuned up version of me, slightly alpha male, OCD controlling, you know, aware that I have a presence and a power that I can use. So I'd ramp that up. And that's who that person became, you know. So it's just fine. All you're doing is, but you can't do that if you're not honest with yourself. About, some people can, they just stumble into it. But for most of us, you got to just be honest with yourself and be honest about when the door's closed and I'm going to bed and the lights are off and I'm really honest with myself about who I am. That's your starting point.
Yeah. 100%. One last question. Do you ever miss the performing side of things? Because you said right at the very beginning, you got a buzz from performing, but obviously with ghost stories and writing and directing and everything else that you do, I imagine it's been a while since you've done any type of formal gig. I imagine you perform all the time socially. Is that something that you've missed, or have you scratched that itch and you've moved on?
I don't perform all the time socially. I rarely do it. I rarely do it. And part of that, I think, was I used to be, I couldn't go out without a deck of cards and this and my hopping half and a bit of rope or, whatever I was doing at that time. And we'd go out for dinner or see pals, and the evening would end with me doing 2 tricks every single time. And understandably so, for my wife would get to the point where she'd be like, okay, I'm going to go at the loof. He's doing magic now, because she'd seen them all and she'd get bored out of mind. And you end up seeing it through their eyes and thinking, if I played guitar, is that what I do at the end of every night? This has been a lovely meal, guys. So when you're weary, it'd be weird.
Yeah, it would.
So, so I stopped sort of doing it for mates, although I do it for magic mates, weirdly. And I haven't done a paid gig for, God almighty, 20 years, maybe.
Wow.
If I had a cabaret, it would ruin the day for me. I used to feel ill with worry all day and for a few days leading up to it. Close-up gigs I used to kind of enjoy. I'd enjoy them when I was done, when I was coming home.
And you were looking back on it.
Looking back on it. I'd always feel sick walking into the room, Okay, we go a couple over there. All right, he looks nice. I'll go there first. Even, but... And then, but at the session last week, I see Nick Einhorn lecturing, who I've known forever, who's brilliant. And I watch him doing his worker stuff. And I think, oh, that carding wallet's fucking wicked. I'd love to be out there doing that. Or your brilliant Keymaster that I bought. I've been carrying that with me and thinking, I can't wait to do that for the right moment. Can't wait. Absolutely. When you find a good practical trick that you think, oh, yeah. But no, I don't miss gigging. Yeah. I don't miss going. And also, that cupboard there has got my Mentalism case, my close-up case. That one there's all my kids' party stuff. I'm telling you, things go quiet, I'm back out there. I'm not even kidding. It's like an insurance policy.
Yeah.
Having that, because I know, if for whatever reason, I've been, touch wood, very blessed over the past few years with my acting career. It's been, 35 years of graft to get here, but it's all going very well, but it may stop next year. You finish every gig, every job, and you think, go on, what's next? And you just, is there anything going to come? Well, if it doesn't, I know that's always there. And I'm not saying that being fakely humble. I mean it. It's there. I haven't got rid of any of it. I've not thought, well, those days are over. So I love it.
And this kind of brings us to present day, Andy, because we touched on this earlier in the interview, but during Ghost Stories and when you got really busy with Derren and acting and directing and so on and so forth, you kind of almost vanished from the magic community for a bit. We didn't see you around as much. There was a period of time where everybody was super excited. Oh, Andy's coming out with something else. It's going to be amazing. Then you vanished. And then all of a sudden you came back with a bang. First of all, you popped up on my Penguin feed with The Moment. And I was speaking to Sean Dunn the other day. He told me that's like one of the most popular tricks that Penguin have brought out, which is amazing. It was super clever.
Thanks.
And then I loved it. And then obviously last year, you and Preston make a big announcement of, hey, it's the London Magic Convention, which was great because I felt that there was something missing after Ronsday disappeared. And that felt like the same sort of vibe. And then at the back of that, we now have the second London Magic Convention coming up. So I suppose, what made the rebirth happen? And where did the London Magic Convention come about from? And how awesome is it working with your son on this project?
Oh, it's absolutely brilliant. I mean, I know lots of dads say, my son's my best friend. He really is. He's my best friend. I adore him. And, but we had missed Macmillan's. We missed it in November's. Every year we'd say, oh, God, I used to love it so much. It was such a special thing. And there are a few nice conventions, but Macmillan's Ronsday just felt different. It felt like a family thing, and there was a warmth to it and just a love of magic that didn't feel corporate. It just felt like, oh, this is such a laugh.
Yes.
And we missed it. And we also missed the fact it felt like, oh, Christmas is here. It's November. It's all happening. So we'd always said, oh, I wonder if they'll ever do it again. Anyway, it got, as you well know, it's like 18 months ago, 2 years ago, things got so toxic here in the magic world, you know, on Facebook with the magic circle. It was just a disgrace. The backbiting, the toxicity of it, it was just heartbreaking. And, you know, we just talk about, I wish people would just remember that it's just fun and we love it and what a joy it is. Anyway, I woke up one morning last September and just phoned Preston and said, why don't we do a convention? How hard can it be? How hard can it be to do a convention? Let's just do it. So it's great, brilliant. So we picked a date. We knew we wanted it to be November. Bush Hall, this is last year, that's a venue near us where we'd had a few parties over the years. Both the kids had had their bar mitzvah parties there, and it's just an old snooker hall. It's a concert hall. It's fantastic. So we did a really fair deal with them. I called up Guy, said, would you lecture for us? And Chris Power came and lectured. Mark Kirsten, Wayne Dobson, Derren came and did an interview. And we also did two other things that we loved. The first thing was we wanted a magic competition, because I sort of said, I look at those New York Symposium books and think, God, can you imagine being, if you met someone and he was like the New York close-up magic champion, you'd think, oh my God, that's amazing. I said, why isn't there a London magic champion? Close-up magic champion of London. Oh, that's so cool. So we decided we're calling it the London Magic Convention. We wanted a close-up competition, the London Magic Close-Up Magic Championships, which Ed Hilson won last year. And you win the title and the Anthony Owen Trophy. It was done in the memory of beloved Anthony, which also helped us because we talked about, we wanted it to be about male mental health a little bit. So we spent 5 minutes just talking about male suicide and the tragedy of that and mind and just putting it out there. Because, you know, also that's the other thing. It's much as we hope it grows and want to change it, magic is 94% male, whatever it is. Whatever is in that DNA, it's predominantly trained, spotty male. You know, it's the way we're programmed for whatever reason. Well, male suicide figures are terrible. And Anthony was, you know, killed himself. And it was important to not only honor him as a dear friend, but talk about that. And we also had what was maybe the highlight of the day, the £4 gala show, which I will
truly innovative. And
well, let me tell you, I'll talk about, and then I'll talk about the gala show. So it's all happening again this year, November the 6th. Tickets are available at the London Magic, at London. Actually, let me just double check this as I'm talking about it. I want to get this right. I'll
put it up on the screen below as you're
talking. Brilliant. LondonMagicConvention.co.uk. It's November the 6th. It's at the beautiful Lyric Hammersmith Theatre. It's completely accessible for anybody who's not able-bodied. We have got 3 brilliant lectures. We've got Richard Wiseman, Matthew Bish, and Chad Long.
Chad hasn't been in the UK for years.
No, Chad is coming over.
How did you get Chad Long? Man, that's a scoop.
Yeah. And
I'm sorry, you can stop right now. Whatever else is happening, I'm there anyway. But I mean, for me, Chad is one of the greatest minds in magic.
He's incredible. And again, not only is he hilarious, and he's the magic, brilliant and inventive. It's relatively easy. It's practical stuff. He's going out working. And then we have a surprise person that we will be interviewing. Now, last year that was Derren. We're not going to reveal who that is yet, but it will be a very special interview. Maybe we'll talk about that on a future Talk Magic. There is the Close-Up Magic Championship. Anybody can enter. The rules of it are on the thing. If you're buying a ticket for the day, you can enter the close-up magic show, the competition. Okay? Anybody, doesn't matter what your age, doesn't matter what your ability. Come on, be the London close-up magic champion. Beautiful trophy and that title. And then brilliant dealers. We've got amazing dealers, a dealers hall that will be full of great dealers. They're all listed on the site, and there's going to be more. And then there is the £4 gala show, which is an absolute mental joy. This is what it is.
Would you like to describe this, because this is nuts?
Anybody can be in the gala show. Anybody. If you're there, you can be in it. You get 4 minutes. Here's the rules. Your act can be no longer than 4 minutes. If your act comes in at between 3 minutes, 45 seconds and 4 minutes, you will win £4 and a certificate. Now, as you are doing your act, behind you, a timer is running. It is a red screen. And when you hit that sweet spot, the 3 minutes, 45 to 4, it turns green. And there is a countdown. The audience can see this. You can't. And if you finish within that time, you win your £4. It's a crazy idea, but I cannot put into words for you quite how exhilarating it is and extraordinary it is to watch. It was, wasn't it, Craig? I mean, it was.
And it's what, although everybody was talking about the London Magic Convention last year and how good it was, and I think one of the things it did last year is we were still kind of in the pandemic, coming out the pandemic. We weren't where we are now, and everybody was still cautious. And I think it was very brave of you, Andy, to put it on, really, because nothing else had happened. And the precaution, by the way, on the side note, the precautions that you took were just brilliant. You made everyone feel safe in a very difficult situation, and you pulled it off brilliantly and amazingly. By the way, it was everyone was talking about the convention and how amazing it was to sit down and see people again, and the dealers and everything. But all anyone talked about at me was the gala show, the £4 gala show.
It's so fun. Now, the joy of this year is that, I mean, last year was a very claustrophobic space. This year, we're in a beautiful theatre. There is a separate dealers hall. There is a separate area where you can sit and, look at the stuff you've bought, do tricks with your mates. There's an outdoor area. There's a coffee area. It's a really fantastic complex. It is a packed day. The doors open, I think, at 9 in the morning, and we close at 10 at night. And it's really, you'll look at all the stuff is on the website, the running order of the day. I urge you, come along. There are still some tickets available for the day, but book. Last year sold out. We've already sold, all the people who came last year have booked straight away. So there's a big chunk gone, but come for the day. It's Sunday, November the 6th. It's in Hammersmith. It will be unmissable. We just can't wait. We just cannot wait to see you there and just have fun.
It really is. I can't stress enough for people that are listening to this. Me and Lloyd on our podcast, we talked about it the following day, and we both said it was just amazing. There was a certain kind of buzz that you just, like some conventions you go to and it feels a bit dead, and then you don't even know what it is, what you put your finger on. You can't. And then there's certain conventions that have that magic, and you don't know why. Blackpool for me is something that has a certain amount of magic. I had that same feeling that I have at Blackpool when I went to the London Magic Convention. For me, we booked our hotels. Me, Ryland, my entire family. We're going down. We're just the whole thing. It's great.
Thank you. We can't wait. We can't wait. And please God, we'll be here to stay. Look, I won't lie, it's a hell of a commitment for me and Preston. I mean, you know, it's just the two of us. It's not some big corporate company. We're just out there on a whim. I mean, that's also one of the reasons it's nice. Thank you for your support. It is literally just father and son going, we just want to do something nice for Magic and have a laugh, you know, and that's the joy of it. It's just, Soph was on the door doing tickets. Macy and her boyfriend, Macy, my daughter, and her boyfriend were selling, you know, the London Magic Convention merch. You know, it's like going to the circus, you know, it really, yeah.
And Preston's busy. I mean, he's an incredible, you know, actor. I've interviewed him on this channel. He's busy with his acting career. He's got his own brand of stuff that he releases.
Yes.
Simon, and you know, he works with Simon Lipkin on several projects.
Well, he's got his brilliant Basil magazine. He's doing, and I can't tell you what this is yet. He's doing an acting job at the moment that is so exciting. It's so amazing that he's doing this, and he'll let, you know, the cat will be out the bag at some stage in the future, but today's his first day on it. And it's really, you just think, oh my God, good on you. It's brilliant. But again,
how proud you are.
I am so proud, but it is a joy, the two of us doing it together. But we're doing it all. You know, we're booking the ticket, we're booking the train tickets, you're chasing the acts going, hang on, can you tell us what days you're there? All the same time, I've got Derren coming into the West End. I'm going back and forwards to Prague and Amsterdam, filming a new Disney Plus series at the moment. The novel's coming out. You know, I mean, it is like a full plate. But on top of that, I'm, you know, chasing dealers going, so excited you're coming. You know, I can't wait. And also this job that I'm doing, this Disney Plus job, because of COVID and stuff, everything's overrunning at the moment. They know we're supposed to stop October 27th. If there's an overrun, I am not free, you know, till like November the 8th. You know, that week is convention week.
That's great. And I genuinely do think that this is going to blossom into the next Ronsday, the next Macmillan. I really hope it will. I'd
love it too.
And I want everybody who's listening to this interview to go and support you guys, because it you know, it's a convention born out of passion and born out of the love of magic. And I think that's why every single person needs to support it. Really.
Thank you. Also, I forgot to say, there's another thing that we do, the Patrick Page Award for Excellence in Magic. So last year it was David Burglass, who made the most brilliant speech, so moving. You know, he's an inspiration. Well, the winner this year is fantastic as well. It just, yeah, we really want to honor people who've made a difference to magic and our lives, you know, and this year's recipient is really, really special. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Well, that's just another reason to come along, right? Just another reason to come along. So tickets are available right now. I'll put a link in the description down below.
Thank you.
Also being at the bottom of the screen throughout all of this, so people can go on, and don't leave it to the last minute. I know I had to pull some strings with Preston last year, because I promised I'd take Ryland because it's his birthday on the 12th of November, and it was the 13th last year. So I was like, well, go for your birthday. And he kept saying to me, do you need to buy tickets? I'm like, nah, don't worry about it, kid. It's going to be fine. And then there were no tickets left. And I literally beg Preston. I had to pull every string that I'd ever pulled. I played the please, it's my kid's birthday card, don't make me do this. And luckily I managed to get a couple of tickets. I'm not making that I'm not taking that chance this time. I'm there, you know. 100%.
Thank you. Well, can't wait, and we've got some good surprises lined up.
And that's what I loved about Ronsday, by the way, the surprises. You never knew what was going to happen. You never knew. It's like, hang on a minute, how did they get this guy? And it was the same with last year. It's like, you know, you just sit down and then Derren walks in and it's like, what?
Yeah.
It's those surprise elements, you know.
It was great last year. We had Dynamo there and, you know, wandering around just there for the convention. And it's so nice, you know, and everybody was... One of the things actually Preston noticed, and it was just a really special thing, was that, you know, Derren came and did his interview, and you know, he'd finished the tour the night before. Unbelievable. Came straight there, did the interview, and then sat there and watched the rest of the day and went round the dealers. And, you know, because he is also a total enthusiast, you know, and that was the same with Dynamo, just there and sitting and watching the £4 gala show and going around the dealers. And because we're all the same like that, that doesn't mean we don't need to treat each other with respect, but we all love it in the same way, you know, and that's one of the absolute joys of it. And that, you know, we just want to share that.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I'm so excited. I can't wait. I wish it happened tomorrow. So I'm going to have to wait. November the 6th. Get the tickets down below.
Yes.
And I'm going to ask you one last question to wrap this whole interview up, Andy. And the final question is, and I asked this to a few guests, but it's you know, it's something I definitely think I need to ask you. What's next? And what I mean by that is you have done so much. If you decided to go, you know what, I'm just going to put my feet up and do nothing for the rest of my career, nobody would say anything. But I mean, look, we've talked through this whole interview of what you have achieved through your career, it both as an actor, as a writer, as a director, as a magician, you know, everything that you do, you've been successful at in one shape or another. And now you're doing it again with the London Magic Convention. And then you see Preston, who has gone on to follow in your footsteps in such an amazing way, both as an actor and also as a creator and a magician. Is there anything left on your magical bucket list that you've done, or is it just like, hey, you know what, I've done it all?
No, I never think like that. I don't know. I mean, I'm working on something at the moment with Andrew O'Connor and Derren, something else that is very exciting. That's another magical box to tick. Derren being on Broadway was very, very special. That was very special. And I have no idea if Showman will go to Broadway. I'd love that too. I think it's our best show. I'm so incredibly proud of that show. And of Derren's work in it and the work that the three of us have put together in it. If you haven't seen it, I urge you to go. And certainly it's coming to the West End from December to March, but it's still on tour at the moment. I think what's special about that show, and this is to answer your question, this isn't just to segue into talking about Showman. I think the thing that I'm most proud of with that show, that in terms of what's next, was that it's a show written by, I mean, I hate referring to myself like this, but 3 middle-aged men. We're all in our 50s.
Yeah.
And it's a show about that and about life in a way that is really honest and really sincere, and all within the framework of doing some killer magic as well, of course. And the thing that's amazing for me, most amazing about how Derren is that unlike a lot of performers where you see them desperately clinging on by their fingernails to trying to be 30 when they're not, and it's like, mate, stop wearing leather trousers. They do not, you know, that's not a good idea anymore. Is that he's absolutely embraced that. He is absolutely a middle-aged man doing this show that is about life and the journey that life takes you on. And I'm so proud of it. It's such a great piece of theatre. Forget a great magic show. And that's always been the aspiration with the Derren thing. When it all started, when Andrew asked me to direct the first show with Derren, write and direct the first stage show, my what's next was, it could not be, the show must not be a magician doing a series of tricks. It had to be a piece of theatre. And we've continued to do that. And I'm so proud of that. And I think, who knows if there'll be another Derren stage show? I honestly don't know. They take so much out of you to create them. They're so hard to do. If this was the last one we ever did, I'd feel like that's a great way to finish. So I don't know in terms of what's next. Will be this thing with Andrew and Derren that will be something that I guess will be announced at some point soon-ish. So that'll be physically the next thing, to try and squash in amongst everything else.
I don't know how you do it. I genuinely don't know how you do it. I feel tired just thinking about some of the stuff that you pull off. And you mentioned a novel before we wrap this up. Can you tell us about that? Because you say that's coming out in the spring. That's soon.
I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about it.
Okay,
but it'll be a big thing. Hodder are publishing it. I honestly don't know that I can say anything about it yet, but I suspect it won't be long before it's properly announced and stuff. But I don't think I'm giving anything away to say this community will hopefully get a lot out of it.
Great. We'll leave it there. Maybe we'll find out more. Well, we'll definitely find out more in the next few weeks and months, but I imagine spring, it'll definitely be around by the London Magic Convention, I imagine, right?
It'll be announced by then.
Yeah,
I bloody hope so. Yeah.
Amazing. You've got so many things going on. You've got so many things going on.
Yes.
Like I said, it just makes me tired. I'm really thankful that you found time to come on the channel.
Me too, Craig. Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it, because everything that you've said has just been, I really hope people sit down and listen to everything you've said, because some of the information that you've given have been golden nuggets that you would go out and pay somebody to tell you, and you've given freely on this interview. So thank you so much.
A pleasure.
And like I say, I'm looking forward. I know you mentioned in the interview other tricks that you're working on. I'm looking forward to seeing those. I'm looking forward to going to the LMC. I'm looking forward to everything. I'm going to put links down below for everything I can find, including the moments and everything else. The links will all be down there. But the most important thing, the single most important thing, take it from me, trust me, go get tickets, because they probably will sell out and you don't want to be disappointed and have to beg Preston to get you a ticket at the last second, because it's difficult to do. So everyone go and get a ticket. And Andy, one more time, thank you so much.
Thank you, Craig.
No problem. Guys, I'll see you again. Leave a comment down below. Let Andy know what you thought of the interview. Go get tickets, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Thanks very much for watching.